Hello, welcome to the sideboard here at the StarCityGames.com Open Series Season 3 Invitational in New Jersey. I'm Nick Miller alongside our Season 3 points leader, Joe Lossett. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm nervous, but I was hoping, since I have a bit of a lead, I wouldn't be as nervous, but that didn't work. I'm still nervous. But
we have a bit of a sweat today, and you're here in the sideboard doing a deck tech with your deck of choice, Miracles, that everyone knows you. You stream it, you play it all the time. You've had a great success with it. Sort of a deck tech, sort of an interview, you know, about the Invitational today. The main question I have is, when did you come to this type of build? When did you decide you wanted to play Miracles, you know, and what happened from that point on?
Well, I started playing Miracles, I guess it was about 2 years ago now. I actually saw an article by Carson Cotter about, there was actually no counterbalance in the deck, but it was just a control deck with the Miracles, and I tried that, and I enjoyed it. And then he and I both started working on counterbalance, and this particular build came about towards the end of 2012, because Caracas was always in the deck as a one-of,
right? And
you know, the interactions with a couple of Vendilion clicks comes up, and I was like, well, I'm gonna try Venser, and Venser was pretty good, and I was like, I kind of want another Caracas now, and then I want another Venser, and right after I made that change, I played against Lauren Nolan in the top 8 of the Open. I think it was in Las Vegas, and that was kind of the match where people realized who I was, because we played a very intense game on camera, where the legend creatures basically held off his entire deck by themselves. And ever since then, that's pretty much been where I've been at.
And the legendary creatures with Caracas allow you to just continuously reuse them. I've seen like the Miracles deck get in a situation where they will just Venser every turn, you know, and the player can't do anything at that point.
Yeah, and Venser does a lot of work against permanents, and Click is obviously good against their hands, so really one or the other is good a lot of the time. And then Venser, as I've played the deck more and more, I've learned more things I can do with it in regards with top and with other spells, and that I feel like as I continue to play the deck, I get better and better at using Venser, although I also, as I'm aware of more things I can do with it, I have more options, and I tend to make the wrong choice occasionally because I'm more aware of more different things, but I still think it's a net benefit.
Yes, you're so well versed in the deck. You've done a bunch of these lines of play on camera where you do things like they'll tick up a Liliana and you'll bounce the Liliana and they'll have to get rid of it. I've seen you do things with it and Sensei's Divining Top at the same time where like things are just switching positions, and I just lose track of the game state.
Yeah, that's some of that stuff is less effective now that more people are aware of it. I think maybe a year and a half ago, that was just not something that the average Legacy player was familiar with, and now they're more so. So I see, for example, there's times where people with Liliana will just not use it for a turn to hold a card in their hand so they can't lose it to a Venser. And you know, if I don't have a Venser, that's obviously great for me, but sometimes it's annoying because it's like, come on, play into this.
Yeah.
And they don't do it.
Let me blow you out real quick. So for those unfamiliar, Blue-White Red Miracles is a control deck that revolves around Counterbalance and Sensei's Divining Top, along with Miracles like Terminus and Entreat the Angels. You have some specific choices. We've gone over the legendary creatures. You also have some Spell Pierces and just normal counter spells. But what's interesting is where you kind of differ from the field is you only go with the 2 swords and you opt for these Red Blasts and go with the legendary creature package.
Right. So the main reason it was probably at the beginning of this year, maybe about February, where True Name Nemesis was really all in a lot of decks, and obviously swords is no good there.
Yes.
And whereas Red Blast at least can kill it when it's being cast. So I was like, well, okay, you know, swords is kind of doesn't seem like it's at its best right now. One of the main reasons I feel like you want swords is because of Dark Confidant, and there aren't that many Dark Confidants running around right now. So I cut down to 1 sword to see if I could get away with it, and I couldn't. So I went back up to 2, and since then I feel fairly comfortable. Like Dark Confidant is the big worry. Like a Dark Confidant that I can't kill is probably the worst thing for this deck for me, and it's more likely to happen with my version versus other versions. But I feel like you can get away with that. It's okay. Right.
I feel like the meta has shifted a lot away from Dark Confidant, and when the biggest threat is really Delver of Secrets and True Name, Red Elemental Blast deals with both of those.
Yeah,
True Name on the way down.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the drawback also against the Delver is that you have to get red mana, which you know, isn't always the easiest thing to have be stable. So another change I made as I going through playing with the deck was, before I moved to the main deck blasts, I had a pair of Volcanic Islands, and now that I have 2, I put a basic mountain in the deck in the main, which gives you more stability to cast that. But then a lot of the time, you can have it in hand with, as people on the stream like to point out, like Island Caracas Mountain. It's like, oh, this isn't so good.
Yes, your streamers are big fans of your mulligan decisions and opening hands that you can come around to, but the flexibility of the deck allows you to do that. Especially those decks with top, you can find your other lands, and I've seen many people keep a Caracas top hand and get there. So.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my kind of my theory, and I don't actually know that this is right, but it works for me, is that I would rather keep more cards, even if they're not ideal, than have a fewer cards that are more well suited to what I'm playing against in game one. Now sideboard, I would say I'm mulliganing much more aggressively than game one, because I know what I'm looking for. For game one, there's enough card, like with Brainstorm and Top and Jace, even if you don't start with it, you'll draw it eventually, and you can sort out. As long as you're still alive, you can sort your hand out and clean it up.
Right, so you have 3 Jaces as sort of a win condition, but also helps you, sculpting top, getting rid of some of the cards you don't want, doing the things Jace does.
Yeah.
Now you have 2 Entreat the Angels, and a couple of people are torn on the Entreat path. I know Brian Braun-Duin, especially in his build, while much different than yours, just doesn't want any Entreat at all.
Yeah.
But I've heard you say that is the most important card a lot of times.
Well, it's definitely, Entreat is super good against normal creature decks. Whereas, like, Stoneforge is probably better against a combo deck, because you spend mana on it early and then it just sits there and can do its thing. It takes, well, it doesn't really take longer because it comes down earlier. You probably kill them about the same time. But kind of like with the Spell Pierces in my deck and the main deck Red Blasts and the counter spells, a lot of the time what I'm trying to do in the first 2 turns is leave my mana untapped. And so as compared to versions with Stoneforge or Ponder and things like that, who are more likely going to need to tap their mana at the beginning of the game, that's fine, that works for them. For example, they're also playing 4 forces generally, whereas I'm only playing 3. So I have a bigger need to keep my mana untapped early to try and keep myself alive. So I'm not sure that some of the more prolific versions of the deck are better than each other. They run a little differently, and this was what works for me. Yeah,
they all seem to be kind of doing different things with the same build. I know Schoeniger's list, who's been writing for Star City, is all about the 4 Ponder.
Right.
He doesn't run the full, the vanillion clicks. He just has Snapcaster Mage.
Right.
And you come down in I want to stay alive mode. I want to be able to answer things more so.
The one big difference between Schoeniger's Ponder version and mine is that he's generally just going to be better against creature decks than I am. He has more swords. He has more Snapcasters, which can flashback swords early, so you have more swords. He's better against creature decks. And I'm better, I feel, against the mirror and against combo decks. And that's the choice we both made, and I think both of us are happy with our own choice.
Right. And I would say your choice has paid off pretty well this season and this year.
Yeah, I've done pretty well this year. Although I haven't done, I may have not made as many top 8s as I would have liked, partially due to, especially I've gotten faster when I started playing this deck, I was not fast. I was a slow player. Now I would say I'm reasonably getting games done and not drawing as much. But at the beginning, I was drawing a lot, and that wasn't the deck's fault. That was my fault. But it took me a while to clean that up.
And that's an important factor with a deck like this, being able to pilot it effectively so you don't get draws.
Yeah, it's also less of a factor today or here at the Invitational with the extra round time.
Right.
That definitely, I will probably be one of the people taking advantage of that.
55-minute rounds at the Invitational helps you play a deck like this.
Yeah.
So we've looked at the main deck. Now we have the sideboard where you just have a plethora of options here. And I know on stream you've been debating a card here and there and really, testing a lot of things, but you've come to this conclusion and you no longer have the misdirection in the main deck, you have 2 in the sideboard.
Right, and that was actually just come about in the last week when I started trying the second counterspell. And originally I put the second counterspell in the sideboard. It's an extra 2-drop, which matters for the counterbalance curve, because I'm sure that's another thing. The Snapcaster builds or the Stoneforge builds have more 2-drops, and that's a place where my deck is shy. And so having the extra counterspell helps as an extra 2-drop. And then, I wasn't sure. Basically, going into this tournament, I had to choose between cutting a counterspell, a misdirection, or a Flusterstorm from the 75, starting with 2 of each. And I really agonized over that, and I wasn't really sure. I ended up cutting the Flusterstorm because I feel like this isn't really based on anything, but I feel like out of the 3 Delver decks, Bug is the one I'm most afraid of.
Yes.
So I feel like the misdirection is more valuable than the other cards, partially because of that.
Redirecting him to Taurox and things like that.
Yeah, Ancestral, whatever. And replacing the extra Flusterstorm with extra Counterspell against a combo deck is worse, but it's not that much worse. So this is what I went with for this weekend, and we'll see how it goes. But I still feel like I'm worse against combo, but I'm still reasonably good against it. So
you mentioned the Flusterstorm. You've got an extra Entreat the Angels as well as your Red Blast and Pyroblast, and an extra Venser for just in those matchups where you want a bunch more of those effects.
Yeah, I mean there's a few cards where Venser is just extremely strong. Those being Show and Tell, Stoneforge Mystic essentially, and Liliana. Those 3 cards, Venser, or decks with those 3 cards, Venser is very, very strong against. And so I feel like I can 1 main. I don't want 2 main. That feels like a lot, but having 2 total, I'm pretty happy with.
Yeah, those cards conveniently a huge portion of the metagame.
Right, yeah.
You're going to experience Stoneforge Mystic in most decks, and if not, you're going to see Liliana and the like in those others. Now you've got a Supreme Verdict, and is it Staticaster here? Staticaster is a sweet card, helps you get out of like tons of goblins, a bunch of little creature decks, Death and Taxes.
Yeah.
Supreme Verdict, just another Wrath.
Yeah. Yeah, Supreme Verdict's just a Wrath, particularly against the Daze decks, where you just want to be able to clean the board up first, guaranteed. The Staticaster used to be a Sulfur Elemental, and I played that for a long time, and because it's very strong against Death and Taxes, obviously. Right. But the Sulfur Elemental is reasonably good against Death and Taxes. Also comes in against Elves. It comes in against Storm, which when I started playing with it, I didn't realize I was going to bring it against Storm. But it kills whatever the creatures are in the sideboard, whether it's Antid Swarm, Dark Confidant. It kills either one of those, and it kills the Empty the Warrens. So it's basically against Storm. Staticaster is like a blue Terminus. Yeah. So you pitch it to Force Will, and it kills the creatures. So I feel like it's pretty strong.
Right. And again, answers Dark Confidant, like you said, when trimming swords.
Yeah.
You've got a couple Rest in Peace and Grafdigger's Cage against the graveyard-based decks.
Yeah.
We've seen those. Last week we had 2 Dredge in the top 8.
Yeah, I saw that. So, that's exciting. I think Dredge is a pretty cool deck. I've messed around with that a little bit myself, and that's cool and it does well.
If people are thinking about bringing Dredge this weekend, I think they probably thought twice after seeing,
maybe,
hey guys, Dredge is back.
Yeah.
And then a Pithing Needle and a Council Judgment as kind of catch-alls. Council Judgment can answer literally anything.
Yeah, I actually was close to cutting the Council's Judgment for this week for that, instead of cutting the extra the Flusterstorm, cutting the Judgment. But I played this week on the stream. I actually, even though I had the Judgment in the sideboard, I just didn't let myself bring it in, and kind of missed it a little bit. So I had to leave it in.
Yeah. All right, and that is the deck. We're in round 1 here. You've got 2 buys.
Yep.
A long day and a long day 2 ahead of you. A lot of sweating.
Yeah, it's
just kind of talk about how you feel this weekend.
Well, I mean, I feel I'm happy that I had a lead coming into this. Bertoncini didn't do particularly well his last couple opens, so I had a lead. I didn't go to the last couple events. I managed to maintain most of that lead, which I was happy with. He has to do significantly better than me this weekend in order to pass me, but he can't win. Because if he wins, I get it anyway.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a unique spot, someone pointed out. And so yeah, I feel I'm confident, but I'm also pretty nervous.
Yeah. Either way, for Bertoncini to win, he must top 8. And then that allows you to do many different things to counter that.
It's nice, I can almost get like a redraw. Like even if I get crushed today, there's still a reasonable chance I win the season anyway, which, that's nice.
Yeah. Not a bad thing.
Yeah.
All right, well, Joe, thanks for sitting down to the sideboard. I look forward to watching you this weekend and hopefully seeing you in the Players' Championship.
All right, well, thank you.
For everyone at home, stay tuned to StarCityGames.com for all the coverage here at the Season 3 Invitational.